Hi, everybody. Welcome. We're going to give a few minutes for everybody to join us. I see everybody's kind of coming in quickly. As you join us, if you want to go ahead and put where you're from into the chat, we would love to see where everybody's joining us from. Welcome, everybody.
I want to say Valdosta State's in Georgia. Am I
Yeah,
right?
it is. Yep.
Down here with me. Nice. Oh, another Georgia
Got
Southern.
a lot of Georgians. Georgia Southern, North Dakota. All right. Yeah, as you're joining us, if you want to put where you're from in the chat, if you just got here, we'd love to see it. McDaniel, Spain, North Carolina, Missouri, Goucher, Buenos
Argentina,
Aires, Bolivia, South Korea, awesome. The Netherlands, Murcia, more North Carolina, some Florida. Oh, this is great. Grand Junction. Cool. Welcome.
We've had a lot from Truman State.
Yeah.
Like earlier today.
Got Lily from Chester. Awesome. From Lithuania. Cool. Austria. Wow, this is great. Okay. Well, I think we can go ahead and get it started. I'll turn it over to you, Grace.
Awesome. Thank you, Rachel. Hi, everyone. My name is Grace Glancy. I am the Student Services Officer for Northern and Central European Programs at ISEP. Today, we'll be giving a little bit information on your acceptance package, and then we will dive into the main event, which is going to be our current student panel. We have 4 students who are joining us today that are currently on program, and my colleagues, Grayson and Rachel, will be moderating the conversation. But first, I want to give you a little bit more information. I know a lot of you are patiently awaiting news on your acceptance package. Oh, and once again, if you guys have any questions during the duration of the presentation today, we encourage you to put your questions in the Q&A box at the bottom of the screen. Okay. So we have the student services. As I mentioned, I'm a student services officer for Northern and Central Europe. My colleagues, as listed here on the screen, I encourage you, if you have any questions at all regarding your program, regarding your acceptance package, that you reach out to your student services officer. Their contact information is also going to be on the first page of your ISEP dashboard. So if you have any questions at all, I do encourage you to reach out. Okay, so your acceptance package. Many of you have just completed your course list and your thoughts are, what's next? You're waiting for your host university to confirm your acceptance at the university. So once they confirm your placement, you will receive your acceptance package. This will be in your ISEP dashboard. Your acceptance package, you have 3 weeks from the time you receive it to complete it. There are 3 main sections in your package. This includes your student contract, your medical form, and your acceptance payment, if applicable. Okay, your student contract. So your student contract contains 3 parts. Program information is the first page, and this contains important information on your program start and end dates, your housing benefits, and your meal benefits, if applicable, included in your program. Please make sure to read all information thoroughly and follow all directions you receive from your host in order to secure your housing and prepare for your arrival. This includes keeping an eye out on your emails, including your spam folder, in case any emails, international emails, go to your spam folder. The next part of your acceptance package is your contract of participation. This contains important information from your host university and ISEP, including program-specific information. I encourage you also to review the ISEP conditions of placement contained in the contract of participation. And then the last part of the acceptance package in the student contract is the signature. We need you to electronically sign your contract to confirm you have read and accepted all of the terms outlined on both pages of the contract. Okay, the next 2 portions are the medical form. So please make sure to note any medical history and any medical needs that you require accommodation for while on program, so your host university can make those accommodations as soon as possible. And for the acceptance payment, as I mentioned, if this is applicable, your acceptance will only be processed once you complete your acceptance payment. You will complete this acceptance payment located in your invoices tab, which is the same tab in which you paid your application fee. Once again, You will know if you need to pay this or not, as you will see it in your invoices tab. Once again, if you have any questions regarding your acceptance package, I encourage you to reach out to your student services officer. Okay, and now I'm going to pass it on to today's moderator, Grayson.
Sorry, I couldn't find my mute button. Hi, everybody. I'm Grayson Dwyer. I am the Member Relations Intern at ISEP currently, and I'll be moderating for this panel discussion. I'm also joined by my wonderful colleagues, Grace Glancy, who has been talking to you so far, one of our wonderful student service officers, and Rachel Gordon, who's the Director of Enrollment Management. So they'll both be monitoring questions. As I'm asking questions, feel free to put more questions in the chat so we can just keep everything rolling as we go. But we're so excited to have you all join us today, and we'll be hearing from 4 of our ISEP students who are currently on program in Europe and the UK. We do have questions already set up for our panelists, but like I said, please feel free to shoot some in that you already feel like you want to put in. So I'm pleased to introduce, we have Fikemi, who is from the United States and is currently studying in France. We have Jack, who is also from the US and is currently studying in the UK. Angel from the US and is currently in Austria. And then Piper, who's also from the US, who is studying in Spain. So thank you all for being here. I'm really excited to talk to you. To start off, I'd love to hear our panelists share with us an anecdote, story, or something highlighting a pivotal moment during your study abroad. Let's go ahead and start with Piper. If you want to shoot a, go ahead and share one of your stories.
So one of my most pivotal things, I think, was actually last week. I actually went to, so I was here last semester, and so I went to the Netherlands to visit 2 of my friends that I met last semester, and ended up hanging out with some of the other like Dutch kids who had also studied in Pamplona that I hadn't really been able to talk to when we were all here. And I think that it's cool that we were able to bond over like our experience here even after the fact. And like it really put into perspective, like, because like I'm still here, like it doesn't quite feel like it's over and that it's been life-changing, but just being able to like talk with people that I know from here who are already done, just to know from like their perspective that like it is a really big deal to be doing this, and that it is life-changing.
Absolutely. The connections that you make while you're abroad, they're life-altering, and you'll most likely have those connections for the rest of your life. And it's really awesome that you're able to already have those conversations with people and connections before you even go back. So thank you so much, Piper. Angel, do you want to answer the same question?
Yeah. So last weekend, I got a message from one of my friends that I met, and I wasn't really planning on going anywhere that weekend. And then she asked, she asked if I wanted to go anywhere, and she suggested that we go to one of the many lakes that is offered in Salzburg, like the state of Salzburg. And so we ended up going to the Wolfgang See, hopefully I said it right. And it was so beautiful. And we ended up going to this restaurant that was actually supposed to be closed. And the owner of the restaurant ended up giving us like a lunch, even though it was closed. And we had this lovely view of the lake, and it was just amazing. And so it's just really awesome to see how friendly everyone is in Salzburg. So, yeah.
That's awesome. Being able to share moments like that with people that you would otherwise never be able to meet, and also get some free food, is also really wonderful at the same time. Thank you for sharing, Angel. Jack, if you want to go ahead and share your story, do you want me to restate the question?
You're good.
Okay.
One of like the coolest kind of things that happened while I've been here. So I'm studying in England, but I've been able to travel all over. And on a trip to France, I was staying at like a hostel, met some people. We figured we'd go out for a few drinks. And like at a bar, we were like just chatting with some like French people. And then after a while, this one girl goes, "I'm sorry, my English isn't very good. I don't know what you're saying." And I was like, "Oh, that's fine, like no biggie." And then she was like, do you speak Spanish? And I was like, oh, yeah, like, because I studied it in like school and I spoke it for a few years now. And I was like, yeah, I do. And so I ended up having a Spanish conversation, even though we were in Paris. And it was just so funny that someone from Paris communicating through Spanish, like to me, an American who's like, it was just like seemed so like cross-worldly, and it was cool to like that we were able to like communicate in that way. It just was cool to like meet new people in new ways, and it was just kind of an aha moment of like, oh, I can talk to people in ways that I didn't think I could. It was just really cool.
Yeah, I know, that's amazing. The finding different ways to communicate with people, whether that's through language or food or community, like it's wonderful finding like random connections with strangers, being like, oh, we're both two strangers in Paris, but we both speak Spanish, so we might as well hang out and have a good time. That's a really awesome experience. Fikemi, do you want to go ahead and answer the same question?
Yes, I'll go ahead. I did want to clarify, I'm from Nigeria, I'm not from the US, but my school is in the US, but I just wanted to clarify that. I think the aha moment that I remember was so I'm an exchange student, meaning that all my classes are in French, and I'm here primarily to learn the language. And so when I first started classes, everything professors were saying would fly by my ears. I would, maybe pick up a couple je m'appelles. I'm joking. But, it was very difficult to understand the majority of what professors were saying in the beginning. And in my notebook, I would have like maybe 10 sentences out of a 2-hour class. And I remember there was a specific class in my 4th week where I actually understood what the professor was saying, and I was taking notes, and the notes were kind of flying by my ears because I was understanding more than I could write at a time. And I remember leaving that class and just feeling like it was working, studying abroad and being here and trying to learn the language and making that intentional effort. I felt like it was working, and I was going to finally be at a level where I was comfortable to say that I spoke French. And that was definitely a pivotal moment for me. I'm pretty sure I got emotional, but don't tell anybody.
Oh, that's really beautiful. I love those little moments while you're abroad or just in an unfamiliar place, like those little wins where it's like, oh, I understood you, or I can read that sign, or I know how to get to this location using these buses. Like that, those little wins mean so much because you just start to feel like, oh, I'm meant to be here. It's such a wonderful feeling.
Can I hop in with some questions from the group?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So the first one, Haley wanted to know about meeting students on your program. So I'm going to answer one part of this, but ISEP is going to send out typically a little bit before you go, we send out these Connect with ISEP sheets where you can sign up to share your social media with other students who are going to the same country you're going to. But for each of our panelists, once you got to your host site, can you talk a little bit about how you met other people, how you started making friends? I know that's for most people, that's their number one concern is when I get there, who's going to be how am I going to make friends? How is that going to happen? Can each of you talk about the process of making friends?
I could start. I will say it was hard for me, not because I'm not a friendly person. In fact, I kind of dubbed myself the life of the party. But it was hard for me because I'm in the north of France, and whereas in Paris, which is more central, a lot more people go to Paris. A lot of people speak English in Paris. Not that many people speak English in Lille. And so you're forced to really learn the language and integrate as quickly as possible. So I found that, what everybody calls, millennial, Gen Z, generation type situations of like Bumble BFF, things like that. Asking when you get to a class and you don't really know what's going on, just ask the person next to you, hey, could I get your email and you send me your notes on what's going on? I've met a couple people that way. There's a conversation class that we have that connects you with French speakers to practice your French skills. And so I met people that way. But with ISEP specifically, I don't remember not knowing ISEP students. The host coordinator is that I think the host coordinator has us in a group chat, and we're still close to today. We chat, we share experiences, we still go out. So it was definitely harder to make French friends, and I don't have as many compared to those who speak English, but I think you have to be very intentional about putting yourself out there and possibly feeling embarrassed speaking a language you're not as comfortable communicating in if you're going to a country that's different, that speaks a different language than you're used to.
That's awesome. Thank you. Yeah, I think we hear students definitely make a lot of friends in classes. I like that you brought up the conversation partners. Especially if you're going to a country that doesn't speak your native language, a lot of our sites offer conversation partners, which is a great way to make a friend. Piper, Jack, or Angel, do you have advice on how you made friends when you arrived?
I have something to add. So I agree with everything that was just said. But if you are in Europe studying abroad, like Europe has their big like Erasmus program, and like 80%, 90% of my friends are Erasmus technically. And so like I definitely have some ISEP friends, but like at least like in the city that I'm in, there are 2 universities and there's over 200 international students between the US, South America, the entirety of Europe. And so like if you go to like that first orientation thing that you have, you're gonna meet people. Just be willing to like go and be like, hey, like, do you want to go like get coffee or go get a drink after this? And you might feel really weird doing it, but as like I've always talked about with my friends that I've met here is we're all looking for friends. So no one, unless like you have something going on, no one's gonna look at you and be like, no, because they want friends just as bad as you do.
That's great advice. I agree with that completely, especially if you're with other students that are international students. You're not the only one looking for a friend. Everybody is looking for a friend. So put yourself out there. If you meet somebody in orientation, say, hey, what are you doing after this? That's great advice. I love that. Jack or Angel?
Yeah, we also had like a little get together when we all first got here. They only hosted like one event for us to like get to know each other. But from that, and it's kind of funny because it like ended around like 8 p.m. and like it didn't start till like 5. So it was only like we were only there for like 3 hours. So like you said, we were like, I was like, okay, like after this, do you all want to go to a pub and like get to know each other a little bit? And so we did. And from there, we just like everyone like exchanged like Snapchats and WhatsApps and whatever form of communication people wanted. And from there, we just kind of like built this little web of like international students. And then from there, like everyone's roommates, like all of my roommates are great. And so we all like just kind of hang out with whoever's available that day. And it's just this giant group of people. It's really, really fun.
Awesome. Angel, do you want to add?
Yeah, so at least for my university, we have a Erasmus Facebook group chat as well. And so from there, we also have a WhatsApp group chat, and all the time people post, hey, I'm going to this cafe, does anyone want to meet? And that's usually when you go with people and you go to get a cup of coffee, and next thing you know, you're hanging out with that friend for weeks and going on different trips. And then usually the university, well, at least my university, they offer different events. I think next week we have a speed friending event going on. So I'll get to meet some more people that way as well.
Awesome. That's great. So one of the other questions that is directed to Jack, but I think it's great for everybody to answer. Could each of you talk a little bit more about what your housing is like and also your favorite places on campus and how you found your favorite places on campus?
My accommodation is different from what I'm used to in the States. It's basically all the same. We've got an apartment and there's like 6 guys all in it in our own rooms, but we don't have a living room. We've got like a kitchen, we've got like 2 different bathrooms, but there's no living room. which is weird to me because like that's where back home I'd like host parties and we'd all hang out, watch movies and stuff. And so instead, we usually just like go out to a pub. We don't get like smashed every night, don't worry. You can if you want to, but I don't recommend that.
But we
But
don't
pubs just
recommend because it's an academic program, right? Everybody's here to be focused on their classes.
Yes. Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
But pubs will let you just like go there, order some food or order a drink, and you can just like chill there for hours. So we just all kind of hang out at pubs. It's just kind of the British way. They just kind of go to pubs and like spend hours there. And so that's what we'll do, as well as like parks and like public areas around campus. I don't actually spend a ton of time on campus because my classes are like really short and they only happen like once a week. So I mostly like spend time in like the city center and in parks and stuff like that.
Awesome. Anybody else want to talk about their favorite spots on campus and how they found them? Or it could be in your city.
I'll chime in. So to be completely honest, my university isn't really one. They don't host events. They don't do things to bring students together, which is fine. Like I said, like the Erasmus people, they do events and like I meet people that way and then like friends and like we meet people in classes and stuff. And so like our university is very much you go to class and then you like go home or you go and meet up with other friends and things like that. But like we've got this one really nice like green stretch from some random building. I think the president's office is in there. Honestly, I don't know. And our library, and it's just lined with benches. And like especially when like the leaves were turning like colors in the fall, and I'm sure when like the trees start turning green again soon, like that was super gorgeous. I'm sure it will be again. But then like that little area, like we'll have like little picnics there, or we'll just sit on the benches in between classes because like there's a cafeteria that we can like sit outside, but we'll just kind of take our coffee a little bit further and then we'll sit there and then we'll just bring our glasses back when we're done.
All right. Jenna asked, when you're not in class and you have your free time, what do you like to do? Do you all like to explore the city? What kind of things do you do when you're not in class?
Yeah, for me, I explore the city. I'm in the city of music, so there's a lot of Mozart-based things here. And so I got to explore Mozart's birthplace, and then as well, I guess this is the place for The Sound of Music. So there's tons of different sites from that movie that I can see, like the Mirabelle Garden. It's one of my favorite places right now because there are a bunch of magnolia trees and cherry blossom trees. So it's really beautiful right now. And then just walking around Old Town as well, because you get to see like this combination of history, like a building built in like the 1700s, and as well as like newer buildings like H&M and stores and stuff like that, which is really nice. And then just hiking as well.
Cool. Anybody else?
I could go ahead. I will say, so with the way my classes are set up, I only have classes Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, which is very convenient because I have 4-day weekends every weekend. So it's been a lot of time. Well, usually when people are having classes, I'm able to do exactly what Angel talked about, you know, really walk around. Public transportation is amazing in Europe. But if I find that somewhere is like less than a 40-minute walk, I'm probably gonna walk it just to see what I find along the way. You know, dropping by the sites for your city, but also finding out where the public transportation for your city takes you. And I have a friend who just kind of sat on the metro and waited until she was tired of sitting on the metro, and then got off and started walking wherever she was. I think studying abroad is very much the best time to romanticize your life. Highly recommend doing it. There are times France has basically every first Sunday of the month, all museums are free in France. And so, or most museums are free in France. And so your first Sunday of the month, I remember I just got up and went to some museum. I was like a 30-minute walk from my apartment. And then I got my journal and I sat by a lake and I was journaling. It was great. It was great. Very main character. So that's usually what I do in my free time, is fill my free time with main character moments, basically.
Awesome. I love that.
That's exactly how you should do your study abroad.
Yes.
Yeah.
I love the main character energy. Okay, shifting gears a little bit. Sophia asked for each of you, what was the move-in process like? Does anyone want to take it? Jump on in.
I mean, I didn't really have like a move-in process. When I first got to England, I spent a week in London first. And so I'd already been here for a week. And then I took the train up to Preston. And I just kind of showed up and was like, hi, can I get my keys? And they were like, sure. And they gave me my keys. And I was like, okay. And they're like, yep, that's it. And I was like, okay. And then I just like walked to my apartment, went up and put my stuff down. And I was here. Like, there wasn't really much of like a introduction or like, here's campus, or like, let me walk you to your apartment. It's just, here's your keys. And I walked myself up.
Awesome. Anybody else?
Yeah, mine's was kind of similar to Jack's. I spent a week in Munich first, and then I took a train down to Salzburg, and I picked up my keys, and then I spent most of my day trying to find like places to buy stuff for my dorm. In Salzburg, I think, I don't know, most of Europe is a little different, to where there's not like a Walmart or a Target where you can just buy whatever you want. You have to like find the specific store. Thankfully, I stumbled upon IKEA, so I was able to buy most of my stuff that way. But it took a lot of like, it was pretty much like a scavenger hunt around the city, and it was a good way to find things around the city as well for my room.
Yeah, cool. All right, so the next one is a big one for everybody. How did you manage culture shock? This is a great question. I think I'd love for each of you to answer if possible. Do you want to, Piper, do you want to start?
Yeah, so I can go first. I'm gonna be completely honest. When I first got to Spain, I like got my key. I went to my room and I sat on the bed. I cried for about 15 minutes, called my parents, and then took like a 3-hour nap, and then cried some more, and then went out and got dinner. So I'm very much, if I'm stressed, a good cry and I'm fine. So if you're like me, I 10 out of 10 just recommend crying it out. It's it is what it is. But like, you just have to do what's good for you, and like there is no great way to manage it. You just have to like push through it. Like even when my parents came and visited, they were here for a month, and even my mom was overwhelmed, and like she like, yeah, a month's a long time, but not like that long, like in comparison to the 10 months I'm here. And like even she just like locked herself in her Airbnb one day and didn't go out, because it's just, everything's so new. Like in Spain, they're really big on eating ham. Like anything you get, like any of the tapas or pinchos you get are gonna have ham in them, except for a small selection. And so like if you don't like ham, that's an adjustment. If you don't like fried food, that's also an adjustment. The language, it's overwhelming to be walking down the street and everyone's just speaking a language that like, yeah, you understand, but like I'm not fluent at all. Like I understand fragments or bits, and so like sometimes it is just overwhelming. Or like in the supermarket, that one can get bad when it's like everyone's going grocery shopping at that moment and there's just like a million people talking, and you're just kind of like, okay, like what am I looking for? And you just kind of have to, like I said earlier, like just push through it, and it does get better.
One thing that I will definitely recommend for students is if you're going to a country where you don't speak the language, is to learn words specific for the grocery store, like figuring out, like if you have allergies, learn those words in that language, so you can look for it in food. And think about something that Piper just said about the grocery store. Find those comfort items. Like there was one food that I found that there was, Lucky Charms was €8, but that was the one thing that was like in the Finnish supermarkets that was like reminded me of home. So finding those things is really wonderful, if not a little expensive at times. But those things are important to look for while you're abroad, to just like remind yourself of home in some way.
I could jump in. So I think the two biggest things that I had to adjust to were, first one being French people aren't as quick to work as Americans. So I'm a junior in the US, and so I've been in the US or lived in the US for 3 years. And you know, if you've been to the US or the States, you know, the service culture is very high. You know, people try to get you your things on time. And if you send your professor an email, sometimes at like 10 p.m., they'll respond without a doubt, except it's, you know, the middle of Sunday. But in France, it's not the same at all. People will basically start work at like 9, 10, you know, take a smoke break for 2 hours at 12, and then come back to work at like 2:30, you know, and work until 4. So there's a high chance that you'll think that the bank would be open at 1 o'clock, and you'll go to the bank and it's not open because it's not open until 1:30 when they're done taking their break. So that was a huge thing to adjust to. And then the second thing I think is being from Nigeria. Nigeria is I think a lot of African cultures have very communal ways of living, and a lot of people aren't very individualistic in their thinking. And so when I went to the US, I was like, oh my goodness, everybody is like so individualistic in their thinking. But now that I've been to France, oh, it's even more so like that. And so, you know, I wasn't very used to, like Jack mentioned earlier, people just kind of give you not necessarily all the tools you need per se, but, you know, they just kind of give you the first step and expect you to figure it out on your own, which is fine. I just wasn't expecting that. And especially coming from a small liberal arts school in the US, you know, I'm very much used to, you know, everybody making sure that you're fine. It's someone's job to make sure that you're fine. And that was the case here as well. But there was a lot more individualism expected. And so that was the other thing that I wasn't expecting. I will say the language, I wouldn't say barrier, because I was at a B2 level when I got here and I've been working from there. But it's definitely a big adjustment having to live your whole life in a completely different language. And to that, I would also say, as well as asking questions and reaching out to, for example, your host coordinator to just, you know, for help and all of that, I will say it helped me a lot figuring out how to kind of taking the time off by myself to calm down, you know, go to the grocery store by myself. So I'm not like paying attention to everybody else. I can take my time, walk through the grocery store, spend about a couple hours, you know, looking everything up on Google Translate. You know, it helps sometimes to just really slow down and remind yourself that, you know what, it might be hard right now, but it's going to get easier. You're going to get familiar with this place. It doesn't have to be hard the whole time, but I would highly recommend giving yourself that space to breathe. And it's definitely nice to jump into social circles and all of that, but I think also making sure that you're constantly checking in with yourself is very important, so that you don't feel too overwhelmed by the cultural shock that's around you.
Yeah. I'm so glad we're recording this, because I feel like you just said about 15 things that were fantastic pieces of advice, and I want to highlight them and reiterate some of them. You said so many things that I think are so important for people to hear. I think a big one that you mentioned, both you and Jack, is a difference between the US, especially small schools in the US, and schools abroad, is that piece of in schools abroad, they give you the first step and they expect that from that first step, you're going to take it and figure it out, right? There's not somebody there who's constantly checking in with you like, hey, are you okay? Are you okay? Right? And for a lot of students, we see that be a big change for them, especially if you're coming from the US and you're going to another country. But that's not to say, and I love that you mentioned your host coordinator, right? Your host coordinator is there if you have questions, and they're there, they're happy to answer your questions, but they expect that you're going to take the first step and contact them and ask the question. They're not going to contact you and say, hey, do you have any questions you want help with? That kind of stuff. So I think that's a really key point to kind of highlight. And we see that a lot with students. We get that feedback a lot of them like, well, nobody checked in on me. That's not necessarily how it works. They want you to reach out. If you need something, everybody's happy to help. And I think you'll find that everybody's warm and is excited to be able to help you adjust, but they're not going to be the first ones to reach out. I think that's great advice. Cool. Should we switch gears a little bit? I saw a few other questions in the chat that I think are good to ask everybody. There was one question that was asked in the chat about academics. Could everyone talk a little bit about how you view the academics as different maybe or similar to what's going on at your home university and how kind of how they compare? Does anyone want to take it first?
I can take it. England's education system like threw me through a loop. Like, and all the other people from the US too were like we got here, we're like, wait, how does it work? Because basically there's not like assignments and like midterms and like a final, there's like maybe a midterm and then there's like your final exam and that's all you're graded on. And then even then it's not on like a B, C, D schedule. Like it's like first marks and second marks and third marks and then like marginal fail and then actual fail. And honestly, all of us here are still a little bit confused about it. So that's not very helpful and I'm sorry. But one thing that's nice is like the classes that I'm taking here, I think this is on like a university basis, but mine just basically do as a pass fail for my home university. So I'm just hoping on passing, which I plan on doing. But for the most part, like the midterms that I have gotten back on, I just like did my work as I would like back home and I got like second marks, which is apparently really good. So you just kind of roll with the flow and yeah, and you just kind of see what happens and hope that you're gonna get a good grade.
Awesome. Anybody else want to talk about academics?
Yeah, so at least in Austria, the different types of lectures there are is very confusing. So there's like regular lecture, which I'm sure everyone does, where you go to class, they speak at you, and then you have assignments. So there's that one. And then there's a lecture where you just listen to them and there's nothing. And then you take an exam at the very end of the course. And then there's discussion work lectures. And then there's pretty much like a seminar where you talk at them. And so there's different types of lectures. So that was very different from what I'm used to in the US because I'm used to assignments. And then just because of how they do it, where there's not really that many assignments, you have to get used to just the free time you have and how you don't meet with your class as often. It's like usually once a week, and even sometimes even once every 2 weeks. So that was definitely something new for me because I'm used to meeting every three days a week instead. So,
Yeah.
I could go on after. I was just taking notes to make sure I didn't forget because I think academic difference was probably the biggest one that I had to adjust to. Firstly, because of, of course, the language, all my classes are in French now, as opposed to all being in English. Well, mostly being in English because I'm a French major at home, or in the US rather. I think there's also the individualism, like we talked about, you're expected to register for your courses and let the professor know, hey, it's probably going to be a really big lecture hall or like a discussion-based class. You're supposed to tell your professor, hi, My name is Fikemi. I'm in your class now. I know I wasn't here last week or the week before, but now I'm in your class. Trust that. And then they'll be like, okay, perfect. And they'll write your name down. And then you'll tell the school, hey, I'm now in this person's class and not this person's class. So you have to take charge of all of that. Whereas in the US, there's like a platform where you just remove your name from one place and put your name on another place. Subject difference is back in the US, I'm a business major and French as well. But here I do literature and philosophy in French. So it's challenging to say the least, but I'm managing and really enjoying the challenge, I think. So there's that for me at least. And I kind of encourage it to just kind of branch out, especially because philosophy and literature is something that there's some things that I've wanted to study for a while, but didn't really have the chance or didn't really want to, basically. And so I was like, you know, while I'm studying abroad, all I have to do is take the class in French. So might as well do literature and philosophy, which I've always wanted to do. Another huge difference is you don't really have to come to class. I mean, you should come to class, but you don't really have to come to class. I wrote an exam earlier today, and usually in this class, there's maybe like 12 people. And today, during the exam, all these people I'd never seen in my life were coming to take the exam. You know, we didn't have enough chairs in the class. Meanwhile, we have ample chairs and extra chairs on a normal day. So that was a huge difference. Know that if you choose not to come to class, it's your responsibility to catch up and things like this. Some students will just show up for their presentation and the exam, and that's it. They don't come to actual class.
That's something I want to highlight, because I know we have a few students on this session that are coming to the United States, and that's definitely something that catches them up, is that they're not in the United States. A lot of our classes take attendance, and attendance at your class is mandatory. And for students that are coming to the US on exchange and studying in the US, that often becomes they don't expect that. They don't expect that they're going to have to attend class every single day and actually be there. And that comes as a surprise to a lot of students in the US.
Yeah, that was definitely a big thing. And I think that also takes me to like work-life balance is a lot better here. I feel like because you have your classes once a week and you don't have, it's not imperative that you're at all your classes at every time. So I find that a lot of students, you know, are able to, you know, be like, oh, I'm going to go to this cafe and I have a quick class later on, and then I'll come back to the cafe or I'll do something afterwards. And I really like that about it. I think I have two more. I wrote a whole list. I'm sorry. Another thing is professors don't expect you to pass exceptionally. I think in the US, it's possible to get 100% and over 100%. Here, if you get like a 14 out of a 20 in France, that's like, whoa, okay, you did your doings. And so that was a huge thing to adjust to as well. But also a very comfortable thing, which I think contributes to the work-life balance. It's like the focus is on really adding your opinion and understanding what's going on. That is not in classes where it's like there's a specific answer. But like I said, I'm mostly in literature and philosophy classes, so put it into context. And then the last thing Angel mentioned already was dictation. That is in so many lectures, the professor starts talking and then you just hear 1,000 computers going off. And then you're like, okay, I guess this is what we're doing. And you just kind of keep it moving. But those are the main differences. I will delete my notes now.
Anybody else want to jump in, or should we move to the next one?
Can you refresh the question real quick?
Yeah, so the question was academics and how you feel they're different from your home university and what your academic experience has been like.
Okay. So I think the first thing that really caught me off guard is the professors here are very much like, okay, they're very hands off. And that even came across in like everyone, at least my university, I don't know if it's the same for you guys too. We were given like an academic advisor who needs to like sign off on our courses. And so like I had a couple questions for him and he was just like, no, you have to fill this sheet out and I sign it. Like he only wanted to sign it. He didn't want to talk to me. And like in the US, like if I email a professor midsummer, like it may take a day or two, but I'll get a response. I emailed my advisor 2 days before classes started, and he didn't respond to me until the morning classes started. and so I kind of like that very much threw me for a loop. And then just like Jack and like the other girls were saying, like the grading system here is very different than the US. And like we do a 10 like out of 10 scale, and very similar to Fakimi. Sorry if I butchered that. If you get a 5 or a 6, like a 50% is considered a pass here. So if you get a 50, 60, like that is perfect. Like that is right where you need to be, which is very different than the States.
Absolutely. Awesome. So another question I saw in the chat that I think would be good to pose to all of you is a lot of folks having questions about packing and how you approached packing for your time abroad, and any tips, tricks, advice you have for packing for a semester, or some of you, Piper, for a full year abroad. How do you approach that? Anyone want to jump in? Angel, do you want to start? Or Piper, go for it.
Angel, you can go.
Okay. So for me, I would recommend making sure you have all of your like medications. Like if you have any prescriptions, make sure you have those. Also double check and make sure that they're legal in the country you're going to be in, of course. And then just like allergy medicine and cold medicine, stuff like you need, like when you get sick and stuff like that, like have that as well. And then make sure, like for me as well, because I have curly hair, I didn't have enough of my hair products that I use, so I had to find a place. Thankfully Germany had one where I could get my hair stuff, but just having enough of what you need to like be comfortable in your place that you're going. And then what else? Yeah, just toiletries that will make you comfortable, I guess, is important to have.
Okay, so I'll hop in now, unless you want to go, Jack. Okay. So I want to go along with what Angel was saying. I wear contacts, and so I went through my contacts a lot faster than I normally would have. Like I had enough for each month, and I ended up changing more regularly, and so like my parents had to bring me more, and like I ran out of contact solution, and so I bought some here, and I didn't care for the brand. Like it wasn't comfortable for me. And so like my parents brought me a new bottle, and then I almost finished that. And so like I had another friend visit, and they brought me some, and like I'm just like scrounging around trying to find contact solutions. So, like those are my like 2 recommendations of things to like, if you have contacts, make sure you have enough of that stuff. But then like when it comes to like packing clothes, I put everything into a pile that like, okay, this is what would be nice to bring. And then I like pulled out my suitcases, like, okay, well, I need like X amount of jeans, X amount of this, X amount of that. And then like, okay, this is what I have left over. And then do I need it? Do I not? And then I obviously bought stuff here because I underestimated how cold it got in the north of Spain. So my wardrobe has expanded, which is fun. But yeah.
Awesome. Anybody else want to jump in on the packing question?
I want to add one thing real fast.
Yeah.
Make sure you leave room for gifts in your bag when you come home, because you can stuff your bag all the way, but when you get there, you'll be accumulating things, and you want to make sure you can bring them back too.
That's great advice.
Yeah, I retweet that. I wanted to mention on clothes, I would say pack only what you feel good in. It's really tough when you get here and you don't need your clothes being an extra barrier. So I really was happy that I only brought clothes that I felt good in. There are clothes that you're like, I don't necessarily, that's not my favorite thing, but I'll wear it. Don't pack that. Don't pack that. Just leave it at home. You'll meet it when you get back home. It's better to come with the things you already feel good in and find more things that you feel good in where you go, and then get those things. I think also I kind of overreacted how little I would need. So I kind of underpacked a lot. Grayson, to your point, I basically had the 2 suitcase allowance and I was able to put 1 suitcase in another with how little I packed. And I should not have done that. I should not have done that because I was like, you know, I'm only gonna, it's pretty cold in the north of France. You know, I'm gonna need like a couple pairs of jeans and like sweaters, and that will carry me the whole time. I forgot that seasons change. So it started getting warm and I was like, I don't know what to do. All my warm clothes are in Nigeria. So I would say kind of think through the whole time and think about season changes and then pack what you might need for those times. I think also packing essentials for moving, as in, for example, I came with, pictures that you can see behind me and lights. Those are from the US, not from here. I have candles that are right beside me from Target, not from France. So I would say things that make you feel very comfortable. Make sure you bring those. I mean, these are like, you can wrap up lights and stack pictures. So not huge things, but something that will make you feel good. And then this isn't really packing, but when you get here, because it's, you know, it's an apartment, you have to fill it up yourself. Kind of don't limit yourself from buying the things that you need to buy. I'll clarify on that is the first time I went to the grocery store and I was buying things for the apartment, I was like, you know, I don't need a microwave. I'm only here for 5 months. Oh no, I don't need another pack of containers. I'm only here for 5 months. And then I ended up buying those pack of containers and a microwave like a few weeks down the line. So I would say if you usually use something, buy it, because you'll eventually need it and then you'll only use it for a shorter period of time because you didn't buy it at the beginning. So yeah, that's not really packing, but I think it's important.
Yeah, that's great advice. I think a few other things that we heard, and some things I heard you all say, number one is doing your research on the weather where you're going. Like you can Google online, what are typical temperatures month to month when you're going. You want to look at that and you want to make sure that you have clothes that are going to serve you for those temperatures. Another bit of advice that was given.
Rachel, before you move on, can I add something to that?
Yeah.
And also not even just like from month to month, but like how the temperature fluctuates during the day. Because I know when I first got to Spain, like in the morning, it would be cool. So like I'd be wanting to like wear like jeans and then like a t-shirt with a light coat. But then by the time I'd get out of class at 2, I would want to be in like a skirt and a t-shirt. And then if like I went to the city center to hang out with friends, like as soon as the sun went down, it was cold again. And so just knowing how it fluctuates like that is important as well.
Yeah, that's great advice. Other things that came up in our last session that I thought were great pieces of advice. One was trying to think about packing in terms of like a capsule wardrobe and packing things that are going to work for multiple outfits, things that can be reworn a lot because you have really limited space. So things that are very versatile and can be used in a lot of situations, I think is a great bit of advice. And then the other piece of advice that was given in the last session that I thought was fantastic is also looking up cultural norms for clothing in the site that you're going to and thinking about, like one student gave the example of how people in Italy don't really wear flip-flops around. So like if you're in Italy, you might not want to count on wearing flip-flops every day because people might stare at you and think that you're maybe not culturally appropriately dressed. So doing a little bit of research on what's kind of culturally the norm in terms of what clothing is worn. Anything else to add to that for packing?
I was going to mention for packing, I know it's cold in like Northern England where I'm at, but like I didn't need to bring like 8 different sweaters. Like bring 1 or 2 that like match with everything like you said. Especially sweaters, they're like really big.
Yeah.
I don't know what was going through my mind when I was packing. Another thing that everyone else has touched on, but I want to reiterate, bring some stuff like from home. I didn't think that like I'd like miss home or anything, so I didn't do that, but my mom's like snuck in things to my suitcase without me knowing. And when I got here, I started crying. I was like, oh my God, like these things from back home. It just makes you feel a little bit more like home. So remember that, and then also leave a lot of room so that you can like have souvenirs and stuff. I'm a theater like major, and so I bought a bunch of plays in London, and now I have to get them back to the States. So just bring room. If not, you're gonna have to buy another suitcase like me and ship it home.
Yeah, great advice. Hope just asked a question that I think is a cool question. Do any of you vlog? No.
I mean, I'm a digital ISEP ambassador, so like
Yes.
I post stuff like for people like you to like see like what I'm up to like during the semester. And Rachel can give like the exact number of how many of us there are this semester, but there's
Yeah.
like there's a good chunk of us.
There's a lot of ISEP. Shout out to our ISEP digital ambassadors. There's a lot of ISEP digital ambassadors. We repost their stuff a lot on our social media. So you can always follow ISEP social media to see what everybody's up to.
Yeah, and feel free to follow me as well. Like I try to post a lot. It doesn't always work though, to be honest. School and life gets in the way, but I try my best.
Yeah.
That was something that I actually did during my study abroad, is I had a blog that I posted for people back home as a way to not only document all the positive things that I was experiencing, but also being able to talk about like grief, because I had a friend pass back home while I was abroad, and being able to like connect with people that way. And it's a cool way to just share your experience with people who have maybe never been abroad. And I haven't touched it since I finished my program, but it's a nice little like record of just that period of time where you can look back and be like, oh yeah, during this period I was doing this and I was feeling that, and I was doing this with my classes. So even if your mom is the only one reading it, I do recommend doing that, if anything, for yourself, like a year or so down the line.
I love that advice. I think also it also relates to culture shock, right? And like helping yourself process that culture shock, having a way to kind of express what's going on for you. I think that's such fantastic advice.
I would like to add that I had a friend who put together like a little blog thing. It was literally just like an American in Europe or something very simple like that was like his like website or whatever. But he did it for a very selfish reason. He didn't want to have to like be retelling these stories to like this family member and that family member. And so if someone was asking, they're like, well, this happened, but you can go read more about it here. And so then it like saved him from having to like repeat things over and over again.
Yeah, I think that's great. All right. One last question, and I know we've got to cut it off, or actually I think we're at time. So we'll answer the rest of the questions in the chat, and I want to let Grayson and Grace wrap it up. I'm going to turn it back to you, Grayson.
Awesome. Oh, do you want to go first, Grayson?
You can go first, Grace. It's totally fine.
Okay, I'll just jump in real quick and then I'll hand it over to you to close. Okay, so everyone, thank you so much for joining us today. As I mentioned at the beginning of the presentation, I saw a lot of you had very program specific questions, and myself and the other student services officers would love to answer those questions for you. So if you do have further questions, please reach out to us. Once again, our contact information is here as well as on your ISEP student dashboard on the main page. And we have some exciting events coming up. We are doing some visa workshops for the countries listed here: Spain, Belgium, France, Switzerland, Italy, and the US. You will receive an invitation. You should have already received an invitation with more information, as well as the link to register for the visa workshops. If you don't see your country here, it means we are not having a visa workshop for that country. However, if you do have any questions regarding the visa processes, I do encourage you to reach out to your student services officer, as well as you can find this information in your country handbook on the ISEP website. So thank you so much. I look forward to seeing you guys at these workshops, and I'm going to hand it back over to Grayson.
Thank you, Grace. That was awesome. So I want to thank Piper, Jack, Angel, Bikemi. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing your experiences. This is so wonderful to be able to just sit here and talk to you guys and to have our future ISEP alum and ISEP students be able to talk to you guys. So thank you so much for sharing your experiences. And again, if you have questions regarding anything about your future programs, talk to your student service officers. Here are all their lovely faces. So I look forward to seeing all of you the next time around. So thank you, everybody. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, everyone. And thank you to our panelists.
You guys are awesome. That was a lot of really good advice.